Saturday, October 29th. Podcast and Pours 2. Halliversary. It has been a dream of mine in almost 30 years of doing radio to book my own show. And this, by the way, is the first time to do it. I wanted to book it with a band that I absolutely adore. And not only am a fan, but had the opportunity to meet and hang out with a couple years ago for a little bit. And that would be the Verve Pipe. And right now we've got lead singer, of course, Vander from the Verve Pipe on. How are you, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Jason.
Yeah, it was what. So I got fired like a year ago, right? And I started doing this.
What'd you do?
Radio.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was nothing in particular. It was my time. There's a shelf life on us guys, right?
Right.
And so I'm just so angry and frustrated with the business, and I wanted to do this for a while. I built my own studio during the pandemic, and but I was kind of like pushed to say, hey, podcasting is going to be the evolution. This is what it's going to be. You've got to step up on it. Let's do it. So then they came the events, part of it. And part of it was wanting to book a band. And the Verve Pipe was the first band that came to mind, to be honest.
Nice. But that's not usually the case. So I appreciate that. That means you're a real fan.
I am a fan, but it's more than just being a fan. The music that you've produced over the years, of course, the hits like The Freshman and stuff, are such a part of people's lives. And, when I announced that you guys in the Verve Pipe were going to be headlining our show for Halloween, there were so many comments on social media of like where they were when they first heard The Freshman.
Right.
And that has to be cool to know that you're the guy behind all that.
To be, I mean, to have something out there that that I created that still resonates with people, but also with new people, but also brings people to a nostalgic place. Awesome. I'm thankful that it was that song, because I believe that the universe bestows upon us writers these these melodies and some lyric ideas for whatever reason. And had I written something like "I'm Too Sexy," or it wouldn't be the same thing for me to play that live. You know what I mean? So it's nice to be able to hang my hat on that song.
And I'm glad that you embraced that. There are a lot of artists from different generations, actors in particular. There's a few that over the years are like, don't talk about the big hits. Just talk about this straight to DVD thing I'm doing. And it's like, well, of course, you're here to promote this. I get this. And that's what you're using me as a vehicle to do so. But people also want to hear about such and such. Truth be told about The Freshman, though, you had that song done and you were performing it originally acoustically well before it hit the mainstream world, I guess, right?
Yeah, that was one of the earliest songs I had ever written. And there's probably a lesson in there somewhere, that I should, try to get back to that place, if we want to write songs like that are storytelling songs that are compelling and that kind of thing. And 10, 15 years ago when I started doing solo records, that's when I went back to that place. So yeah, I had written that song early. That was one of the first 4 or 5 songs I had written, and I was laboring over the lyrics. And it took me almost a year to write that song, to get it the way I wanted to get it. I can get to that place a lot faster now, lyrically, but back then I was just trying to figure it all out,
Well, you're a different person too. Obviously, a lot.
Sure.
You're a different time, different day and age, and different things going on in your life. And
Right.
and you guys are part of that kind of post grunge era of music. I always like to refer to it as the pop rock singer songwriter era.
Yeah.
You just had a lot of bands. And I'm a fan of grunge. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's part of my coming of age days. But let's be honest, most grunge songs, most people can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was we're talking about sonically the term grunge, the dirgy kind of guitars and the heavy bass and the drums and that kind of thing. There definitely the production on The Freshman especially was geared towards grunge. but it had a pop melody and a pop sensibility, the classic songwriting, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, double chorus out,
Mhm.
which is pretty standard pop, which is what I grew up on. So that was a production issue. As far as lyrics go, there was so much ambiguity in the lyrics since Nirvana hit with Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean, what do those lyrics mean? It's open for interpretation. And a lot of that grunge music back then was about poetry and about, ambiguity. This song was pretty straightforward. It was a story, a linear story that had a few little poetic and metaphoric moments in it, just enough to entice people to want to know what the song was really about. And to this day, people still talk about it and ask me about it. And that's a great thing, man. 30 years of something where people feel like they have ownership to the song because it means something to them, because this lyric struck a chord or this lyric struck a chord, whether I meant that, what their definition of that lyric is or not, doesn't even matter. People have ownership of a song as soon as they hear it. I'm a firm believer as a writer that when you're writing a song and working on a song, it's your song as a songwriter. As soon as anybody hears that song, that is their song. And
Mhm.
that's why I try to make sure that it's exactly the way I want it to be before anybody hears it. Because once somebody hears it, they don't want to hear a different version of it. They don't want to hear a different lyric. They're so used to it. They get what we call demoitis, and they want to hear it that way. So it's their song.
And that's another thing when I saw you guys perform, back in the day. I think at the radio station where I started at in the 90s, you were part of a show at that time. I think it was like an odd lineup. I think it was like you guys and like Tonic and Gina G. It was just like all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
So I mean, it was just weird. But so then, fast forward to I think it was about 3 years ago when you guys were in Atlanta at City Winery. One thing that stood out to me was when you did do, not just the freshman, but like colorful and stuff, but definitely the freshman. You sang it as a fan, watching you sing it, perform it. You sang it like you meant it. A lot of times, artists that have longevity in a song, they'll try to change it up. To your point of what you were saying, because they've gotten so sick of playing it over the years, but they forget the fact that this might be the first time the fan is hearing it, and they want to hear it like they remembered it then.
Sure.
And
Yeah, of course.
you do that.
I mean, I find that to be important to me when I go and see somebody. I rarely get to see anybody because we play so much and we're so busy. But when I do see somebody, I want to hear the melody that they wrote. And I see a lot of artists that change it up or do different versions of it. For instance, the only different version I think that I've ever done of the Freshman is I do an a cappella version, which is just me beating my chest a little bit for the rhythm and then singing the song. But I'm true to the melody, and I think that's what's important to people. Changing it up in that way, I think, with different instrumentation is interesting. But no, I don't think. I think the idea that you can go out and just please yourself as a performer by changing things. Um, I think that's a mistake. I don't think people appreciate it. I think maybe people appreciate it that have seen it 100 times and heard it 100 times live, perhaps, but we're not out there to perform for ourselves. When I play with the band, we're there to entertain, and I feel that that's important, and I think that's why I think we're a great live band.
Well, and that's at the very beginning of the Verve Pipe. That's where you guys started to make your mark, right? I mean,
The
you
live
were
shows, yeah.
the live shows up in that Michigan area where you're from. And also for those that forget, the 90s were so great for what was really college bands, which you guys kind
Yeah,
of there was a college band out of Boulder, Colorado that never made it mainstream. They're called the Samples.
samples, yeah, of course. I knew you were going to say the samples.
Oh my God, they were such a great band.
Yeah,
And then there were the Scabs out of Austin, Texas,
yeah,
that never went mainstream. But this is kind of the Dave Matthews run of the early '90s. Noah's Red Tattoo out of the Carolinas.
yeah,
These were college bands that never made it mainstream, but were so good.
yeah.
But that was your story with the Verve Pipe. You played the colleges, you played the kids, and that's how you got name recognition.
Yeah, we play, well, Michigan, it's easy. I don't know if you know Michigan at all, but in Michigan, there's, there's a major college like hours, only hours apart from each other. So you've got Michigan, you got University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. You go, get Michigan State's an hour away. Go up north, CMU's an hour away. Go west. It's crazy. So you could run a circuit around the Mitten. Am I doing the Mitten the right way? The
Yeah, yeah, I
Mitten.
got you. The
You
mid.
can run that circuit in 1 week and do that, every week for a month and gain that following, which is what we did. We just kept playing that college circuit. Now, the difference I think between the samples and what we did, and well, Dave Bass is a bad example because he was so mainstream, but the samples was a band that did a similar thing from Colorado, but they didn't have a song like the Freshman that really resonated with college kids. I mean, it's right there in the title.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
that was definitely to our benefit. And it's funny, quick story that I had that song written and I didn't even have the freshman in the song for about 10, maybe 9 or 10 months. Like I didn't have the last line, we were merely freshmen. I was singing the melody, ba da 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 da, and I remember going around the house and I was like, gotta make some breakfast, gotta quit my day job, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to figure out what this lyric is about these two guys, these two young guys that made mistakes. And I'm sitting there ready for work. I used to work at a sporting goods store, stringing tennis rackets. And I'm sitting there and I'm noodling around. MTV's on in the corner with the volume down. And I'm noodling around and said, what is this story? And I look down on the coffee table, and there on the coffee table is the movie, the VHS copy of the movie I had rented the night before, starring Marlon Brando and Matthew Broderick, called The Freshman. And I was
Freshman.
like, holy shit, this is it. They're freshmen, these kids. So because, and the reason it works so well is because these kids, these two guys, could do pretty much anything they wanted as freshmen and get away with it, and we would understand. Well, they were only freshmen. You know what I mean? That's not really who they are. They kind of excuse their behavior,
Mhm.
and so that just the serendipity of having rented that movie the night before is the reason that that song exists. Crazy how the universe works, man.
Have you ever told Matthew Broderick that story?
No, in fact, I haven't met Matthew, and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet Marlon Brando. But I definitely would have told them that they were responsible for that song for
I,
sure.
the song has taken on a life of its own over the years, and everybody, like you say, has got different interpretations,
Yeah,
and even you've said different things over the years.
sure.
That's the first time that I've ever heard that. I never even read that before. But
Yeah,
here's the irony, and I'm a firm believer in the universe as well. I talk about it all the time. And my daughter's a senior in high school, and for years she wanted to go to LA. She wants to do hair and makeup for movies and stuff.
right,
And I was able to convince her to go to a 4 year college and enjoy, something that she'll never have again. And I said to her, you know, I said to her, as a college student, it's like responsibility purgatory. As a freshman, you really can get away with anything. But as you
right.
start to get to a senior, you're close to being an adult. So take
Yeah,
advantage of responsibility purgatory and learn your lessons, not just in a textbook, but from
it's
those
great.
around you. And you guys are playing my show. And it's just, it all comes together. It's really great.
Yeah, yeah. It's great the way it works, man. I mean, sometimes the universe beats me over the head sometimes and I ignore it, and I've ignored it too. And I've ruined songs by ignoring it. I mean, other songs I've written, I go, oh, that sounds too much like a hit song. It sounds too poppy, too this, too that, I don't want to go, it's like when Maroon, I don't want to, you know, come down on other bands, throw shade on other bands, as they say.
Yeah.
But Maroon 5, it's like the kind of thing where it's like moves like Jagger. I just heard that yesterday in the grocery store or whatever. And I'm like, wow, they really went from like a rock band to this super poppy thing
Right.
where I was trying to like push that away all the time, always saying, don't go do it. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. Write your own songs, when we had other, we had the label wanted other people to write songs, write hit songs for us. I'm like, no, we're a band that wants to write our own songs. So I've pushed those moments away just to like maintain my own personal integrity and stay at the level that I need to stay at for my own personal life.
Well, in the beginning of the 2000s was the last time rock radio was relevant, and it was the dawning of the new rock alternative. And
Right.
so bands were launching like Shinedown, Saliva, Disturbed, Godsmack. The
Yeah.
older bands like Metallica and Tool started to get more airplay. They had a home. And then the
Yeah.
grunge era came back. They were considered golds. Nirvana's, the Pearl Jams, the Alice in Chains, so on and so on.
Right.
But then you get this new metal, this Papa Roach,
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit,
Yep.
POD. The Papa Roach is the like example, and I like Papa Roach. I think they do a great job.
Yeah.
Jacoby Shaddix is an amazing performer, but they're a great example of changing what they did originally in order to go to top 40. Because when that format was done, these bands were like, "Where are we going to get played?" And Getting Away with Murder is just a hooky album. It's made
Right.
for top
Right.
40 radio.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, I think everybody has to make. I don't really like the word concessions, but I mean, I can't help but think that you have to make some sort of concession to get to the mainstream. If you want to be cool, I've learned this lesson over 30 years. If you want to be cool and you're too cool to do things to go to a radio station and play your song, or massage the label a little bit to to get a little extra money or do these appearances or whatever, fine. But I've learned over the years that what's really cool? Being successful.
Mm,
And because if you're successful, you can reach out to indie bands, you help them out. You can do all of these wonderful philanthropic things because you've got the money and you're successful.
mm,
And I look back at that era and I go, man, I wish I would have took advantage of the RCA money that was thrown at us, and did the right promotional stuff instead of saying, no, we're too cool to do that. We don't want to do that. A great example is when photograph came out, Kodak at the time wanted to use photograph, right?
mm.
And it was like an ungodly amount of money that they were going to pay us in 1995 or whatever. And we were like, no, are you kidding me? We're not going to sell out to
Wow.
Kodak. And then it was like a year later that Moby licensed his entire album for commercial use. The Verve, licensed Bittersweet Symphony to Nike and all these bands. And I kick myself and go, damn it, man, we were trying to be so cool. And
Mm.
how cool would it be? I mean, Kodak is pretty much defunct at this point, but how cool would I be if I had put that money in an investment, and
Well,
I
it's not
had
even
enough money to do whatever the hell I wanted for the rest of my life?
that's not even a thought today with bands. And
No,
the term selling out,
yeah,
I think died in that early 2000s as well, because
sure.
the mantra for really the punk generation, I mean, you go like the Sex Pistols and then Fugazi and these guys, but then when you got into present day punk, post Blink and Green Day, that kind of thing, these bands were still trying to live that I'm not going to sell out. And then finally they said, this is ridiculous. We've got to
Yeah.
make a living.
Yeah, exactly. And again, what's cool is actually being successful because you can
Yes.
do all the cool things, for everyone else when you're successful.
Yeah. Do you think that uh today you could write a hit song and it go over as well as the freshman, or is it a you thing? Is it a band thing? Is it a society thing? Is it an audience thing? What is it?
No, it's a me thing. It's a me thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the formula is anymore other than to not be interesting. For a radio single. It's typically the same beat. There's no chord changes. There's not a lot of melody changes. You have a hook, and that's the one hook, and you go with it. You can't be Queen today and have a brand new hit single, be a new band called Queen. So I don't think I have it in me to write that way. I'd stop myself. Even for writing for other people, for some reason, there's something in my brain that does not connect with that. And so, had I written the freshman, honestly, if the freshman was written today, very doubtful that it would be a hit song because nobody's really interested in following a lyric
Mhm. I agree.
anymore. I mean, on the mass level. there are people like you, like me, who appreciate a really good story and want to be taken on a journey for 3 or 4 minutes. But people in the TikTok age, and I love TikTok, by the way, I'm having a blast on there. But in this TikTok age, you got 7 seconds. Like my daughter has introduced me, my daughter's 12. She's introduced me to some of the greatest music I've heard in so long. This band called Roar is really great. Mother Mother, stuff that I haven't heard that's really poppy but cool and indie. And but honestly, she cannot listen to the whole song. She listens to a minute of it, and then she'll flip it. And I'll go, wait a minute, what are you doing? It's such a great song. No, I want to hear this. I'm like, have you ever heard the end of a song? And she thought about it and she said, I don't think I've ever heard a song end. I'm like, holy shit, that's the generation that they're in.
And have you
Right?
noticed that these newer artists that are trying to get noticed on TikTok, which I have no problem with. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's an outlet for them, but they'll name their bands catchy titles for what's trending that people are searching for
Oh
to
yeah.
put in their video. It's
Yeah.
all it's all an algorithm.
Yeah. Until a band comes out, I want to see a band just I want to see a band just be the hashtag symbol. You know what I mean? I actually got to write that down. That's a brilliant idea. Start a band that's be like Prince, but it's a
It's
hashtag,
just a
and then I'm
hashtag.
everywhere.
Yeah, I'm actually. I was talking to somebody about the same thing, like hashtags and QR
Yeah.
codes and stuff. I said, I think I'm just gonna do a shirt that doesn't have my logo. It's not promoting my website or the podcast. It's just a QR code, and that's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. And I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put a QR code, and it'll be stylish, and
Yeah.
people will wear it, and then people will scan it with their phone because you have to beat the system of today, whatever that
Yeah.
gets people's attention in order to win them over. You said you like TikTok, and
Yeah.
I saw a video. I think it started on TikTok and ended up on your Twitter account that you're at the dentist and you're like fucking Rob Thomas, who's playing in the
Yeah.
overhead speaker.
And that's my niche on TikTok. You got to have something to get people back. I've got about 6 or 7 fucking Rob Thomas videos. One of them, I'm trying to sing my way out of a traffic ticket, and I still get the ticket. And I'm like, you think fucking Rob Thomas can't sing his way out of a traffic? It's all of these things. Rob and I were friends years and years ago, and it's just one of those things. Is it kind of a joke between us? But it gets a lot of traction. People love it, and I've seen people get T-shirts now that hashtag fucking Rob Thomas, which I'm floored by. And I went into the dentist. I went into my orthodontist the other day, and they have an 8x10 picture of Rob Thomas right where I have to sign in an autograph picture. I'm like, holy shit, man, this is great. I mean, I love it. I love it that people are seeing the TikTok because it's pretty funny stuff, and it's a lot of fun to do that as well.
That's one guy that being from Orlando and him
Yeah.
being an Orlando guy and starting out with Tabitha's Secret before
Right.
Matchbox 20, I just missed it. Every other band that Orlando started, Seven Mary 3, Creed, all the boy
Right.
bands had relationships with. Just Rob
Yeah.
Thomas, they hit, they went, and they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah, and they didn't look back. I mean, I remember we played with them a handful of times at the radio festivals, and all of a sudden we were sitting by the pool. We were in Hawaii after this radio festival, and I think Photograph had just been put out. Freshman wasn't out yet, and they were complaining about only selling 35,000 copies that week. And I was like, oh my God, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to hear this bullshit from you. We're selling 2,000 copies a week. Now I'd be thrilled to even sell 2,000 copies a week, but
Well,
we knew they had that.
I think just to sell a copy, because you
Yeah,
don't
just sell one copy. Yeah,
just
tell
sell
me
one.
about it.
You gotta look at how, what do you get, like 2 cents on the dollar for a stream on
Oh my God,
Spotify?
not even that, dude. I wish it was 2 cents.
Yeah,
It's honestly, we had 4 million streams of the freshman last quarter, and I got a check for $200.
that's
It's
crazy.
0.0000, 4 zeros and then a five, for each stream. It's crazy. I can't complain about it because I stream as well. Listen, I got Apple Music, I got Spotify, and I can hear all the songs I grew up on. I can hear all this stuff, and it's virtually free. So I'm not complaining. What I go around when I do my corporate speaking is I tell, and try to tell bands this as well. You have to find other streams, other sources of income,
Mm.
because once something's free like that, you can never charge for it again. so make your packaging unique. That's why vinyl has done really well for everybody, because now there's packaging, now there's, autograph all of your stuff. Make it something that's special for people, because people aren't going to buy your stuff for the music. It's just never going to come back again.
I would think that not can't really do colorful because that was part of Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. That was a soundtrack song, but
Right.
the freshman, even present day, would be a perfect soundtrack song. Do you still have those, phone calls are like, hey, we got something coming up, even if it's a documentary or an indie film?
Yeah, well, the issue with the freshmen, and this is a problem, is that a lot of times now it's become such a part of our history of the 90s. It's so definitely 90s. There was a show, what was the name of the show? Dave, that was out a little while ago, and it was used the best way we've ever had a song used, where one of the characters is in the shower masturbating to the freshman. And I was like, it's just great. It's super funny and well done, and I loved it. As far as in movies, it's hard to take a song that's a story song and put it into a movie that has a story to it. You know what I mean? And have
Mhm.
it resonate, because it's going to take you out of the movie if you're listening to the words. Now, fortunately, The Freshman has enough nostalgia to it that where it takes you out now, when you see it or hear it in a movie, it just goes, you go, oh, I remember the first time I heard that song, or whatever, or really, this is a really 90s moment. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So that's why I don't think it's not nearly as used as much. Colorful was written for a soundtrack, so I mean
Right.
those two are simpatico. That's it. So
But you have, when you kind of reformed the band in what 2014, and you
yeah,
brought Channing Leon, and
yeah,
it was a different vibe.
yeah,
Even what your last album, it was both of you collaborating,
right,
singer songwriting stuff, and she's amazing. And
great, yeah.
you've said numerous times in different interviews what she's brought to the table, and kind of brought some life back into you and the band. That could be, I mean, something that puts the Verve pipe back into the mainstream world because of her.
I think so. That's not the reason why I would do it, but I've definitely thought that. And we just got off our tour with Five for Fighting, and she turned on this whole generation of 90s people. She's 20 years younger. But she turned on this whole crowd every single night with her magic lyrics and her storytelling and her performance, and it really opened the band up to be able to do anything now, and still be true to ourselves. She's a storyteller, like I'm a storyteller. She takes her lyrics very seriously. She'll work on lyrics, because we count on people that come to our shows to want to hear the stories. And that's part of the great thing about having somebody fresh and new come into the band, a real shot in the arm. And also, we this band that we have together now. My brother Brad came back because it's so good now. In the late '90s and early 2000s, it was terrible. We all hated each other, and Brad laughed, and now he sees how great it was, and Brad came back. It's like, it's a really close knit family, and we're putting on great live shows and still writing music.
Did your relationship with your brother, uh, professionally and personally, kind of take a hit because of the band?
No, in fact, we never missed a step in our relationship as brothers. I
That's good.
mean, as soon as when he quit, I knew this was going to happen. He just wasn't getting along with another member of the band, and it was just impossible, and it was making everybody sad, and it was awful. But
Mhm.
uh, but he's still my brother, and we formed the band together. He and I, we had these songs and got two bands from two different colleges together to form the Verve Pipe in the first place. So to have him back in it and have him with a new attitude, awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And do you remember, I'm trying to think of the band, and it might have been on a documentary where it was an 80s band, and they just knew that the shift of music was coming going into, I think it was the grunge era, and they were playing a festival and just nobody was out there. Do you
Yeah.
remember the shift in music?
Oh
It,
yeah.
it went like during, was it like a one performance where you look down and go, "Ah, it's done. We're done right now."
It wasn't the performance itself. I remember where it was. It was in not Syracuse, New York, Rochester. It was in Rochester, New York, a little restaurant, bar, place or whatever. 1999, our album, the Frog album, they call it, came out. That was the follow-up album to the freshman album, Villains. And the crowd, it was about half full. And we played a show, thought it was a great show, went to the bus, went to sleep, woke up in the morning, and half of our crew had gotten up in the middle of the night and took planes home. Like, didn't tell us. Like, they, unbeknownst to me, they weren't getting paid,
Wow.
and I was like, holy shit, what do you mean they weren't getting paid? It's like, yeah, there's no money, coming in. It was like, oh my God. And I knew then, like, this is serious. And that was right when, Kid Rock came out, you had Limp Bizkit, these other heavier bands, and our stuff just was not working on radio at all. So yeah, it was that night, Rochester. No offense to Rochester. I've had many nice shows since then in Rochester, but I'll never forget that night. I woke up and crew members had ditched us. It was like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Well, have you seen the Woodstock '99 doc on
Yeah, I
Netflix?
just saw it. I just saw it. Great
Oh,
documentary too. I was like, in fact, I don't know if you felt that too. I felt that just in the pit of my stomach, a real sickness seeing that. I was like, because for me, it was like that was the whole, those bands were what destroyed our career. I mean, I can't say they destroyed our career. We destroyed our own career, but they were the reason why we disappeared.
mhm.
And I watched that and I'm like, oh man. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, what are they doing? How violent everything was then and how aggressive it all was in 99. It was like, oh my God, what a crappy time for music, at least for me.
I felt like a putz when I watched it because I was
Yeah.
that, I mean, I'd already graduated college at the time and I was well into my career, but I was still that, kind of meathead, college guy, hat backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
see my Calvin Kleins from my cargo shorts kind of dude. And I'm just watching this and I'm going, oh my God, that was me. It's just,
Yeah.
I felt
Well,
so
that's the thing.
dirty.
But that's again to I'm not trying to bring it full circle, but it does come full circle. That's what the freshman is about. That's about those learning experiences and doing these things, and you're kind of excused because you're part of the masses and everybody's doing it. And so that's exactly where, I think that song falls into our history
Mhm.
and history of humanity. I think everybody at a certain time of their life is a freshman, not only in college, but in high school, or a freshman at your workplace, or whatever it is. There's a certain amount of grace that is given to you to go be yourself. Like you told your daughter, go figure these things out.
Mhm.
And that's exactly, I think, that showed in that documentary too, that these kids were just, I'm sure, I'm sure most of them look back and go, just like you did, oh my God, I was that person. And some people still live their lives that way, man, unfortunately, you know.
Well, 99 was the resurgence of a new type of heavy metal,
Yeah,
led by Korn and Limp Bizkit.
yeah,
And
yeah,
these kids, they might have heard of Metallica or kind of dipped their toe in the Metallica, the Megadeth, the Anthrax, the,
right.
Judas Priest, those types of things. But this was a new aggressive music, style of music.
Yeah,
The grunge era and this music, angry music, bookend what again I called the pop rock singer songwriter stuff, like from the Verve Pipe. And
yeah,
by the time they got to 99, they were just like, all right, I'm done being sad. I got to be pissed now.
yeah. Let me ask you this then, Jason. Would you rather have the generation now, which is just kind of emotionless. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like they're kind of bored with everything, and like my daughter's like, kind of just like
Mhm.
whatever, everything rolls up their back. They don't really get emotional. Or would you rather have somebody that was like oh, this sucks or this sucks or this sucks. You know what I mean? Rather than just being,
I'll take
because I,
option two. I'll take option two. I got to have
yeah,
emotion. I
yeah,
agree.
I agree.
There's very little to no depth with what's happening right now,
Right.
and like the, but when the same breath, you know, because I've seen my daughter and her friends, and there's the extreme and there's the fantasy of life where, you know, this is the worst thing in the world. My mother hates me. She wouldn't let me go out. And I've got to go to the extreme. And I'm talking the
Yeah.
extreme, like taking your own life or going shooting up a school. It was like, and they don't realize the consequences of it versus
Right.
just saying life will get better. But man, I'm fucking pissed off today, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I mean, that's, I think that, I think it was a natural progression what happened. I don't think anything was forced. I think Korn is a great band. I've seen them live. Great show. And I saw him in 99 and it was an amazing show. I was like, wow, I understand why they have these disciples.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I understand why, Insane Clown Posse has their juggalos. I get all of that. And I think there's a place for all of it. Where there wasn't a place for us with that in the 90s was when we would play radio festivals and we would be playing right before or right after Skinny Puppy or it's just like this. You can't put that into a radio festival. And 99 was really bad because we would play these festivals with the super new metal groups and nobody wants to hear Duncan Sheik
Mm-hmm.
when they came to see Korn.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Duncan Sheik is not going to fare well at that show at all. He's going to get hit with pennies. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Which is what happened to us all the time. So, but the natural progression, I think, that happens, and it's going to happen again. My daughter listening to indie guitar rock is really makes me really enthusiastic again because my older daughter, that period of time had left where nobody was listening to guitar. The Guitar Hero age, where
Mm-hmm.
nobody was playing guitar, they were playing guitar on Guitar Hero. I was like, holy shit, our generation, nobody's going to be playing guitar anymore. And now I hear all these young bands and they're playing garagey guitar and they're having a blast and they're writing decent songs. I'm like, fucking A, awesome.
Yeah, I don't think when they say rock is dead, I don't think rock is dead. There's a lot of really good unknown or
Absolutely.
non-mainstream rock bands that are out there that exist that I search to try to find and listen to. The problem is distribution.
Yeah,
And
of course.
even though there are many ways, many vehicles to get the music out there, the internet is a very muddy place. I mean,
Yeah,
you're talking to a guy that's podcasting and has to find an audience on the internet. Radio's not helping the cause, especially rock radio. They are destroying
yeah.
any type of new music from any rock bands.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The thing that is the light, the shining light in all of this, I think, with what's happening now, is now you have to rely on the people that you trust on a personal level to guide you into what they like or what they're listening to or what they hear, and then they discover it, and then your friend says, "Hey, have you heard this band?" And you go, "No, I haven't. You might like this. Check it out." I've been turned on by so much stuff just by other friends and other bands, by my kids, you
Mhm.
know, and that's a great thing. People are talking about music at least. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Rather than relying on what's fed to you by radio, what's fed to you by MTV back then, you're actually relying on people who are on the internet discovering these things, and then you go, hey, you know what? I like that. Another good thing about streaming, I got to say, is that if you like this, you might like that. And I'll occasionally go down to this rabbit hole and I'll
Mhm.
find some stuff and I'll go, holy shit, I really like this. The algorithm did me right on this one.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
and that's that with the streaming idea of like I don't think it's not a music problem. Like there's not good music, and that's what everybody tries to say. There's not good music. I
oh,
disagree
there
with that.
is.
There's
Yeah.
plenty of good music. It's us and how we want to listen to music. I mean, when there were just it was just radio, and then like you
Yeah.
said, MTV. Those are the two, and that's all you got.
It was easy.
It was easy, and it was force fed to you.
Yeah.
And now you're right. It is up to the people. We get to decide, but how seriously will we take it?
Right. Well, who's got the time, Jason?
Yeah.
Nobody's got the time. look at you, you're doing this podcast. You've got your hands in a lot of shit right now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're doing the show coming up, you're doing this, you're trying to figure out how to get more people. I mean, we're all so fucking busy all the time. I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning just to keep up with shit. And who's got the time to research and research music and the whole thing? So part of me says, yeah, it was easy back then because they were telling me this is good and I could see it on MTV, go, hey, I like that band or whatever. It's how I discovered Nirvana and the whole thing opened up for us. But yet, who's got the time now to do that kind of research and work to find stuff? So,
Right.
you know,
Again, you have to, people have to be force fed stuff in order just to get a taste of it to
yeah,
understand it. You know,
yeah,
did you, what do you remember the time I asked you the time that you knew that the music was shifting? That would have been the bad time, but then the good time is when the music started to shift back and you guys were getting booked left and right.
yeah.
And the nostalgia factor came, but do you remember when that happened to you?
Uh, that's been so gradual. I mean, it really is now looking back and saying, yeah, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. You know what I mean? There was no definitive moment. Like there's a definitive moment when I knew that the early shift was happening when I was painting houses with my friend, interiors of houses, and there was a place that we played this 3-story rich person's home. He had a huge screen and we'd have MTV on all day because they were gone all day and we would, paint and it would be the hair bands and it would be, U2's latest album was like, whatever. And then I remember Mama Coming Home, Mama I'm Coming Home by Ozzy. And I was like, oh, Ozzy's writing a ballad now. And it's like, okay. And then I'm painting this back room and I hear a guitar riff and a bombast, a bass and drums, and I run into the living room. I'm like, what is this? And there's cheerleaders in black, and there's that moppy-headed blonde kid, and there's a fucking janitor with gunk in the pail, and I'm like, holy shit! What? And it's of course it smells like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
I knew then I was like, oh my God, there's hope for the kind of music that I like and that I'm making. But as far as what you're saying, when it's coming back, it really is just the idea that, suddenly a TV show wants to use The Freshman for nostalgic sake because they're having a 90s episode or whatever, that kind of thing. And I'm enjoying that success as well. And we get asked all the time to go on 90s tours, but that doesn't really interest me as much. So no, I mean, it feels good to be a part of that last generation, that last decade where bands actually wrote all their own music, and lyrics meant something to them. They were trying to write poetry, this kind of thing. I'm thrilled that our music was part of that decade, for
Wow.
sure. And if people can define that decade by using our song to bring you back to that decade, I mean, what greater honor could there be?
Well, next time, Brian, you're asked to do one of those 90s tour, just remember Kodak.
Yeah. Jason, you should manage us.
That's what I would do. I'd walk in and say, excuse me, can I have a minute of your time, please?
Yeah,
One,
that's actually a great point. Great valid point.
actually, I wouldn't even say anything. I'd write it on a piece of paper. I'd fold it up and I'd say, I'm going to leave. Take a look at this.
Oh, dude, such a good point.
All right. So Saturday, October 29th, it is our Podcast and Pours 2 event. So we're calling it Halliversary, celebrating Halloween, celebrating 1 year anniversary of the podcast, celebrating 1 year of me getting fired. It is at Tannery Row in Buford. Tickets are on sale now, podcastthebs.com. The VIP tickets are selling like they're well over half gone. So we have hotel rooms available. If I booked a hotel room. I'm going to stay up there. So you can take advantage of the special deal there. We'll have 2 different Halloween costume contests. That's what I'm getting to. Do you guys dress up for Halloween or you just?
It's so funny because normally I would dress up for my kids and do whatever. But this time, Channing Lee in our band was the one that insists
Mhm.
that we all do this show in costumes. So we're trying to figure it out.
I'll tell you this, the band that is going on first is they're a local band. They're an all veteran band. They're friends of mine. They're great guys. Good music, good music. They're called Distinct Grace. And they're going to either dress up as Guns N' Roses or Devo. So
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
just to let you know.
Okay, good to know. Because Debo would have been the ones that I would have went for.
Yeah.
All right.
And I personally, I have a thing every year. I don't want to divulge what I'm going to be dressed as because I always keep it a secret, but I always mix two different people together. For example, I've been Willy Wonka Nelson, Garth Vader.
Ah,
I've been
I love it.
SpongeBob Ross. Last year, I was Steve No Jobs because I had just gotten fired.
Ah, it's so good. Oh my God, last year, Channing's so creative. Last year, she went as Alice in Wonderland, and then she put giant chains around her neck for Alice in Chains. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
perfect, perfect.
that's brilliant.
I know. That's why I'm going to rely on her to come up with our costumes for this show.
Absolutely. You know what I saw? I saw on my feed the other day a picture, and I know the guys in Poison. I grew up listening. I love Poison, the band Poison.
Yeah.
I saw a picture. There was a show that they were doing, and this is when they were on top, and the band opening or whatever the band was, they bailed. So last minute they got Alice in Chains, and there was a picture of Lane Staley, Jerry Cantrell on stage with Bobby Dahl and Brett Michaels, and I forget the song they were singing, but they sang a song together. I said, "Get the fuck out of here! That's
Wow.
crazy." Is
That
that?
is nuts.
I had no idea that even existed.
So
Uh,
great.
anyway, all right. I know you got to go. Podcastthebs.com. Please get your tickets. Let's make this huge. Ticket sales have been great so far, so good. You guys know I get anxiety over these things, so I just want to have a huge turnout. I want there to be a huge turnout for Brian and the Verve Pipe. This is truly an honor. Like I started this conversation, I always wanted to do this in my life, my career, whatever you call it. And without hesitation, it was the Verve Pipe because I'm such a fan, and you were so
Appreciate
kind
it.
and generous to me and my wife and my guests when we met you a couple years ago. So thank you very much, Brian.
So looking forward to this show and getting back down there, man. We really are. So thanks for having us, man.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on, Brian. I appreciate all the time, and I'll see you in about a month. Okay.
Great conversation, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you. I'll take care. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye bye.